very, very relaxed. 5 minutes.
I can do relaxed.
Okay. So, Chris, tell me who you are and what do you do?
Hello, everyone. My name is Chris Bates. I am a Chief Security Officer for Bitland Global, as well as the Chief Information Officer for BioLife now. So I am a cybersecurity specialist that has been working in the field for about 3 years now, and I try to work on different blockchain projects depending on how much social impact they're going to make potentially, and I try to get involved as early as possible on the ground.
Brilliant. You've had a varied background,
Yes, sir.
a set of experiences. What has led you to this path?
So I was born into an age when the world was transitioning into the internet, so I was able to see everyone sort of fumbling through learning how to type and learning how to use modems and all these things. So when I was young, it was very, I was made very aware of technology's impact on everyone's daily life. So I've always been inclined to try to be a discerning early adopter, not just adopt technology for the sake of novelty, but I've always been trying to stay at the forefront of what's new. And this is kind of where I got into cybersecurity in 2013, and that sort of led me to the blockchain space, which I was aware of, but because of the implications of cybersecurity, it made me more inclined to start looking into the space.
Now, I have interviewed about 100 people around the world around cybersecurity. I have talked to NATO about counter-strikes online, which I didn't know about. War games going on constantly online between countries.
Absolutely.
I've spoken to US military experts about cybersecurity. I've spoken to ex-US military experts about cybersecurity. That must have given you a very, very deep set of skills and experiences, but also you must have fought hard to stay optimistic about the democratization or re-democratization of the internet.
Absolutely. And you've nailed on one of the biggest reasons I've stayed in the space. And so my first degree was actually in psychology. So getting into transitioning from psychology to telecommunications to cybersecurity, what you then find out in cybersecurity is when we're talking about the weakest link in a chain, in terms of security, it will always be the human. Now, what this translates into is if people are not aware that they're the weakest link in the chain, then they will often be the subject of attacks and they may not even know it. So what I've been trying to do is align awareness of education and how much it is important for people to be aware of all of these things you mentioned concerning the cybersecurity warfare landscape, but further understand that everyone has the potential to become an attack vector themselves. And if people are not made aware of this, they could become agents of a nefarious engine and not even know it.
Mm-hmm. And obviously now, being involved with BioLife, which has an eminently social impact and long-term social impact at a time that is critical for such a venture, I would imagine that's why you got involved.
Absolutely. I believe we are at a point where everyone is starting to understand that data and biometrics are the new oil. They're the new gold. This is where big data is moving all of their capital to invest in data analysis and predictive analysis. So if we are able to create engines that will empower citizens rather than exploiting them, then we can use this technology to shift the landscape in a way that will benefit the people at the bottom rather than the corporations at the top. And one of the big issues is that many people don't understand how they're being taken advantage of. So it's not even something that is necessarily even on the radar. So if someone goes and visits a doctor, they have their doctor's visit and then they go on about their day. They don't care about what happens with their medical records necessarily. But if I told those people, like, hey, once you go to the doctor's visit, you could start making money from all of the information associated with that doctor's visit. The incentive starts to become apparent and people start to understand, hey, if I can make money off of this, who's been making money off of it before? So we see things like Google and Facebook that are starting to be exposed for basically data mining and then selling the data for 100% profit and not sharing any of the profit with the people who are actually producing the data. Then it starts to be clear that people not only deserve a cut of their royalties, these data markets would not exist if it weren't for the people. And this is something that I believe people are starting to get more educated about, and it will definitely push corporations to be more equal when it comes to distributing profits.
So, I mean, 20 odd years ago, we had the opportunity to provide the internet that we all dreamed of, a perfect democracy and information and search and collaboration and community. But at the same time, we championed obviously the entrepreneur, and that was our mistake. Is this a chance to, the price we've paid as consumers has far outweighed the value we've received potentially. Paying Netflix $7.99 a month doesn't seem like a bad idea so much anymore, or paying for Facebook or any of those things, instead of having all my data. Is this a second chance?
Well, I think it depends on how informed people are. So in the way that you framed everything, people are consumers, but they're also producers. If you're consuming something, you're actually producing biodata at the same time, and people are not recognizing that every action they make, every comment they make, every social media interaction, those are metrics from which their data is being extrapolated and sold. So if people are more aware of their power to influence, then they will be able to say, instead of paying $7.99 for Netflix, Netflix should be paying me to then turn around and share my list of what I watch. Then I promote all the newest films to my friends. And this is where, again, as a social influencer, I'm much more valuable to them than a consumer for $7.99 a month. Because if I can turn around and promote a bunch of different films or a bunch of different TV shows to friends, and then maybe even at a reduced subscription fee, then we can start to work together as what was formerly a consumer, but now I become a partner, and I don't have to sign a contract necessarily, because if the system makes it easy for me to go on and just share and make a credit because I shared a video from Netflix, then there doesn't need to be any complex contracts to dictate these terms, because it democratizes the capacity for people to become social influencers. So when you have the Kardashian type that costs $250,000 to get one tweet, well, if you take 1,000 influencers who have 2,000 followers apiece and pay them $10 each or whatever, it's not going to be nearly as costly, and you'll have the same reach. And this is where the shift towards mega or macro influencers, I believe, is shifting to micro influencers. And this is kind of a more micro oriented ecosystem will be more resistant to extinction level events, so economic crises.
Now, we've got some limited experience. We've done a lot of content storytelling, digital marketing and campaigns for ICOs and so on. But there are several patterns, repeat. BioLife, from my limited viewpoint, is something that has some roots. It's something that seems a little bit different from the popcorn, had an idea on Sunday and I'm raising 150 million on Monday type idea. Can you verify that and validate it and maybe tell me why I think that? I mean, it's a great team, for example, great investment opportunities and partners. But even, can you reference it with this as well? I mean, we're sat here in an ancient place. Something beautiful about that, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Something brand new, something so old.
And I think you nailed on what sets us apart. One of the things that BioLife is doing is grounding this project in the real world. So the FASC house in the estate that we're on, they are going to be converting the stable house here into a spa and a medical center. So what this does is it creates a physical location that becomes a hub for what is the digital extension of the BioLife ecosystem. So if someone comes to this spa, they get specialized medical, eventually be able to get specialized medical treatment, proactive medical treatment, and a personalized healthcare program that is geared towards the individual versus the mass medicine that we have experienced for the last 100 years or so. So when we're talking about how BioLife is different, it's not just different from ICOs, it's different from the approach to medicine altogether. Combining proactive healthcare with the granularity of being able to digitally track someone throughout their transactions, whether it be their prescriptions, their radiology appointments, any sort of medical history, being able to combine that into one place, keep it safe, it's private, it keeps the integrity, but then there's a physical center, but then they could take that data with them through the rest of the world. And this is where I believe many of the blockchain projects are trying to ignore physical space, but everything is in physical space. The internet is around us, even though we can't see it. Everything that we do on the internet, it's actually going on in physical space, even though we use a computer or phone to access it and imagine it as being sort of intangible and invisible. Yeah, no, the physical and digital are forever intertwined, and I believe this is where BioLife is separating itself by having a focus on the physical as well as the digital.
Yeah, brilliant. Good man. Yeah, good fun.